Welcome to the Secret Sauce of Selling podcast, the ultimate guide and sales gym to unlocking the secrets of successful selling. I'm your host, James Abraham, and I'm super excited to be here with you today, together with Novasi, our sponsors, hosting Eyal. Gil, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, James. Excited to be here.
So our topic is super interesting. It's the secret sauce of selling, your personal branding. Gil, why don't you give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do and what we're talking about today?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a former tech founder, sold my company in February of 2020. Professionally, the company was an early influencer marketing tool that analyzed who influences what on social media. But as I was doing that, I became very involved in the celebrity endorsement world. I've done about 200 deals for brands, always on the brand side. And when I sold my company, I started investing in consumer startups, which really need a lot of help with selling, and realized that my access to celebrities allowed me to, one, gain a seat at the table as an investor, but two, really bring value to these companies that are very, very good at performance marketing. They're very, very good at getting somebody to their website or to their storefront, but they're not always very good at creating credibility. And when I say that I bring on board celebrities to invest alongside with me in my companies, often people think it's for the visibility, and it is, but really it's about the credibility. And we always look for celebrities that can bring credibility into the sales process of our product.
Interesting. Well, we know people buy emotionally, they only justify the decision intellectually. And so let's unpack that a little bit. When you say credibility, bringing in celebrities, bringing in people that we know, it creates that level of trust. But what really happens behind the scenes when you bring in someone that has a good resume, it's famous, and what does credibility really mean when it comes to building trust and comfort?
So it really starts with being really thoughtful about the celebrity you bring. A lot of people who want to have celebrities involved with their business are really attached to how many followers they have, or what movies they were in, or how famous they are. And that is a really important component. But a much bigger component to me is, does someone who recognizes that this person is using the product, is involved with the product, is an investor in the company, think, oh, okay, a famous person is involved? Or do they say, oh, that makes total sense. Like, I understand why this person would be involved with that. And there are a lot of examples of celebrities endorsing products that just don't make a lot of sense. And then there are cases where you look at it and you say, I don't need anybody to explain anything about the product to me anymore. I get it. I know why. And the example I always give is, like, if somebody, I never haven't found this product, but if somebody came to me and said, I have this cream you put on your head, Gil, you're going to grow hair back. And I said to you, oh, that's amazing, I'm going to get a celebrity on board. And I would say to you, hey, should we choose Jennifer Aniston or should we choose The Rock? Like, who would you choose, James?
Well, The Rock doesn't have much hair on his head, so I'm thinking to myself, Jennifer Aniston, I guess.
Well, if the product works,
Sorry?
if the product works and we know that it will grow hair on his head, does that change your answer?
That's a really good question. I guess it would.
Because if I could have The Rock using it and people would say, hey, didn't that guy used to be bald? Now he has a full head of hair. Wait a second. That's way more valuable than Jennifer Aniston, who already had beautiful hair. She's probably as famous, if not more famous. I don't know. But the message that she brings is a different message, right? She has beautiful hair. If the product was about making your hair beautiful, maybe she would be the better choice. But it's really about being really, really thoughtful about what does it convey that we're working with this specific person, that they're an investor in the company, that they're part of the company. And that's the example I always give. One, because obviously I would love, if you're listening and you have that product, call me. I will fund you and I'll put that on The Rock's head and we'll get everybody to know that it works. But two is, like, if I told you I had this product, you would immediately say, yeah, that doesn't work. There's no product that grows hair on people's head out of nowhere. Like, I've I don't know how old you are, but I'm 47 years old. I've been seeing ads for products that help you grow your hair back since I was born, and I've never heard anybody say, hey, I use this product and it really worked for me. But if I saw The Rock and I saw videos of him getting a little bit of hair and then a lot of hair, I'd say, wait a second, maybe this product does work.
Yeah, well, I think at the end of the day, it really depends. And you said it, what's the product? What are you looking to achieve? What is that level of credibility without having someone come in and endorse it? Because clearly, there are some products out there you probably wouldn't want to touch. But I'm super interested on the psychological journey that your audience goes through when getting involved, when you guys get someone famous involved into that process, because it's always interesting. I mean, we see endorsements all the time, and I mean, we see famous people, especially in social media days, like everyone's endorsing pretty much anything. I'm just wondering, if we break that down to a science or a psychological process, what does that usually look like? How do you guys quantify or build that scientific, the scientific plan of how we're going to get people to get attached to the products that we're looking to sell?
That question hits exactly on the thought process behind this, which is it can't be as simple, let's get somebody famous and do it. It's very much based on traditional marketing fundamentals, which is who is my audience? Where do they consume? What do they trust? Where do they consume content? How can I leverage those channels to reach them and lead them to a place where I can make my traditional sales funnel much more effective? So I start by looking at our sales funnel. Like, where do we reach audiences? Who is the audience that actually ends up on in that place where they make it, whether it's retail or a website, on the place where they have to make a decision? And how can I impact their experience throughout that process? So, very simple example: if I could put a celebrity in Target next to my product to convince you to buy it, I'd probably improve my conversion rate, or at least get a lot more people to come in and look at the product. So we really think about it the same way that you would think about any traditional sales funnel, which is how do I get more people top of the funnel in, and then at each one of the steps in the funnel, how do I leverage this tool, which is a celebrity, to improve the KPIs, to improve the amount of people arriving, the conversion rate to the next level in that funnel. So let's take an example of a company that we're invested in called Goodles. We have Gal Gadot, who was, at the time was playing Wonder Woman. Um, and Goodles, for those who are unfamiliar, is a better for you mac and cheese. It's healthier. It competes with Kraft mac and cheese, which is a very, very dominant market leader that kids love. And we had to convince kids that it tastes really good, and we had to convince moms that it's better for you. And those things don't really go together, right? Like if I tell you, oh, this product's good for you, you assume you're going to make a sacrifice on the flavor. Um, and so the reason, and Gal wasn't the only candidate, but the reason Gal was a great candidate for this, and this ended up working out, and the company's doing really well, was because of two reasons. Kids think of her as Wonder Woman. Moms think of her as that cool mom from the movies that they like and from Instagram that showcases her kids. And though we never, got to that point, in the back of my mind, it was always like, what would Wonder Woman feed her kids? We don't have the rights to the Wonder Woman franchise, and we can't use that standard. But my thought was like, how do I get people to get that thought in their process, in their head? It was like, what Wonder Woman's kids are not eating a very unhealthy Kraft mac and cheese. They're going to eat something better. So what would they be eating? But they're still kids. They want to eat something good. And so we're saying, how do we immediately, when you hear about this product and you hear about Gal Gadot, think, oh, wait, I need to like reevaluate what I think about this type of food and like think about this funnel. Of course, we use her, and she's amazing. They use her through various parts of the funnel. But even at the beginning, you already see how we think about it from a thoughtful perspective, creating credibility with an audience that would be skeptical.
Oh, that's awesome. And we know people, I mean, you're selling change, right? You're
Yeah.
basically giving people the opportunity to change what they're currently consuming, and they're currently consuming bad chemicals, maybe in many mac and cheese situations. And how do we transition someone from something they're used to doing, stop doing what you're doing and do something else? And I mean, at the end of the day, it's convenience over, I'd say, pain in that case, and actually be able to leverage Gal in this example for attention, so that someone could say, "Wait a second, let me ask myself the question: Am I feeding my children, the right type of food?" But there's this person I admire, and she's pretty good looking, and I'm thinking to myself, I want to have healthy children, and maybe I need to ask myself the right questions, not about the mac and cheese, but am I feeding my children the right type of food? I like that.
Yeah.
um,
There's the education component, but then there's also we think of retail as a funnel, right? people who buy Kraft mac and cheese have been buying it, or some of them have been buying it since they were born. Their mom bought it for them, and then when they became adults in college, they ate it as comfort food, and then now that they're feeding it to their kids, they're not walking in and browsing mac and cheeses when they walk into Target, or when they, they're walking over to the shelf where they know that the Kraft is and they're buying it. How do I break that chain? So I put Gal Gadot's face, at the entrance to the store um, next to Goodles, or I make sure that in their feed they consistently see ads with a familiar face on it. But I need to change the way that they're thinking about it when they have a very, very uh, stable funnel that they've been following for so long. It's really, really challenging for incoming brands to beat the incumbents.
Yeah. Well, we know that the psychology of buying is people buy to eliminate pain in the present. They buy to eliminate fear or pain in the future. They buy to gain pleasure in the present, and they buy to gain pleasure in the future. And pain in the present is the most powerful motivator, but sometimes the most difficult to actually achieve. And so, what I'm hearing here is your approach is really kind of combining all of those in order for people to just start to pay attention to what's going on. And who knows, maybe at B2B, you'll have someone only engage after 6, 7, or 8 touch points, sometimes 18. This point, that person might walk into the store 10 times before they try and put their hands on the new brand.
Yeah, and we
Interesting
try to be
stuff.
so yeah, and we try to be as creative as we can in how we approach them. It's not always just the picture of Gal.
Of
She
course.
went to Coachella and she was serving mac and cheese to people out of a food truck. We have taste tests. There's so many things you do across the funnel that you try to improve and somehow leverage the credibility that these people bring on board. And we talked about Goodles, but it really applies to so many other areas. We have an energy drink called Barcode with a basketball player named Victor Wembanyama, who's 7'5". For those who aren't basketball fans, that's like, but no, the world, that's really, really tall. And typically people who are 7'5" are very prone to injury, but he's not. And a lot of it has to do with the diet and he doesn't drink Gatorade, which was the official beverage of the NBA for many, many years. And the reason is because he's very concerned with what goes into his body. And so you bring on someone like that because you want the people who are in similar positions, who want to be professional athletes or want to work really, really hard and want to make sure that they're not injured. They look at what people who in similar or in more difficult situations are consuming. So there's always a thought process. It's not always just about breaking a chain, like in the case of crafts, but how do we get to the point where somebody looks at your product and immediately says, "Oh, wait, I need to look into this."
Gil, how did you end up in this business? How did you end up doing this?
By coincidence. So, early on when I got into startups, I was working for a startup and they had this dream of having a celebrity endorser. It was way before, it wasn't very common at the time. We're talking about around like 2010, 2009. And we had this idea that we would get Leonardo DiCaprio involved in our company. And it was kind of like almost like a joke idea, like it would never happen. But as things were getting difficult and, you're fighting for customers, it was a kind of like Instagram before Instagram type app called Mobley. And certain channels were working okay, but we weren't getting the growth that we wanted. And we said, okay, let's shoot for the fences. And we decided to pitch. And we found a way, and we through elbows just got in and got a deal with Leonardo DiCaprio to invest in our company and to endorse the company. And it was an overnight shift from thousands of users to millions of users with a very low acquisition cost, because his face and his presence and his just the words he said landed on so many ears that were open to listen. I don't need to tell you how short attention spans have become over the years. So it just broke this challenge that we had of getting attention. Nobody cared about us. People skipped our ad the second that they could, but now they were watching the whole ad and they were listening and they were curious because there was content that was only available with him over there. And that kind of seeded this idea with me that I'm not the only one who has this problem, And so I was with that company for a while. Eventually, Instagram came in and kind of ran circles around us and won the market. But ever since, I've been hunting down companies that have an amazing product but struggle to get the message out.
Interesting. And what's the and what are the trends these days when it comes to stuff like that? I mean, we mentioned so many health products, right? So you got a lot of the health stuff going on, and I see a lot of influencers around that, and sort of celebrities kind of endorsing that type of stuff. But I mean, are there specific trends when it comes to the type of companies that get involved in this, the type of celebrities that you guys feel could make a difference? And I'm assuming this is not very affordable for many. So I'm just wondering, is there some kind of a formula that you guys use or you believe in, and you think that is the right way to go about this?
Yeah. It's very much consumer focused. You do see a little bit of it in the B2B world or the enterprise world where there's celebrities who are subject matter experts. So if you're in the antivirus world, if you have somebody who's the number one guy at fighting viruses, you could probably build something around it, especially if it's like an enterprise type sale. If it's a antivirus for consumers, it's a lot harder because consumers don't typically know who the expert is on protecting your computer
Of course.
and stuff like that. Um, so it really depends from a type of company. It's often consumer focused, and then those are kind of broken down into companies like, for lack of a better example, Dunkin' Donuts, where everybody is a potential consumer. There's not, other than it tastes really good, there's not a lot in the messaging. You don't need to convince them about what's in the ingredients. To companies that are much more nuanced, we have a better for you this or that really require a lot of thought around who the celebrity is. So if you're a Dunkin' Donuts, you really just want Britney Spears or Taylor Swift or just somebody who has an enormous amount of reach. It's going to remind people that they're hungry. It's also a pain point, like you mentioned early on. That's like when you're hungry, it's just a pain that you need to take care of right now. So we just need to remind you we exist. But with a lot of other companies, like the better for you, the pain isn't always as apparent and isn't always right in your face. And so there's a lot more than reminding you we exist. And that's where you need a celebrity that's a lot more focused. But the good news is for those types of companies is that often those celebrities aren't getting as many offers. So if you're, a famous psychiatrist, you're not as big as Taylor Swift, and Dunkin' Donuts is not calling. So when a company that does need a famous psychiatrist calls, you're not going to be asking for $10 million to work with them. You'll say, "Hey, I can work with you for $50,000 or $100,000, or maybe I'll do a revenue share deal with you, or maybe we'll
Yeah.
do some kind of a royalty, or maybe if you're a startup, you'll give me some equity." And so there's a lot more flexibility when you start going those ways. We do love the companies that work with the really, really big names, but that's not the only opportunity. And if you have a really, really good product that is nuanced, that's where you have a way to kind of avoid you can work with someone big that creates credibility without having to, you know, take a loan out of the bank, take a new
I
mortgage to
love, I
afford.
love, I love that. It reminds me of George Clooney. He did a rev share off Nespresso back in the day, didn't he? I think he said, "I want to be a partner. I don't pay me." They couldn't pay him or something, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll just make me a partner." And yeah,
And that's becoming surprisingly more common. The first one I can think of is Priceline, and I forget what his name, but he was on Star Trek, he had made a lot more money on working for Priceline without getting paid, but getting equity, than his role as Captain something on Star Trek.
Captain
But that's
Kirk.
becoming more and more common because you see Ryan Reynolds and you see the Honest Company and you see these semi-founder type celebrities joining these companies with a lot of potential, helping them grow from, we have $1 million in sales to hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, because the amount of marketing that they provide for free simply by being involved and getting talk shows interested about talking about it, getting people to pay attention to the ads, getting reporters wanting to write about it, is so valuable, and it's something that the companies could never afford otherwise. So there's a win-win situation here. It has to be a very convincing and thoughtful process. It can't just be reaching out to every person. I remember I was pitched a while back. We can say now because he's passed away, but there was a life extension company that had pitched me saying that they wanted OJ Simpson. They wanted me to get them OJ Simpson to be the speaker, which is kind of like counterintuitive, right? Life extension and OJ Simpson. My immediate gut reaction was like, "You're crazy. Why would you? Why do you no?" And then I thought about it, and I was like, "Well, it would get you attention. I mean, I can't argue with that." Um, didn't end up doing it. Try to stay away from people that have that kind of a track record, but sometimes the thoughtfulness is counterintuitive, but you really need to you need to be smart about how do you leverage these celebrities.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, I think it's a good opportunity for us to just utilize our celebrity status and give a shout out to our sponsors, Novacy. for sponsoring the podcast. Novacy helps you analyze verbal and nonverbal on your virtual calls so that you can know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm curious, where do you see the future of what you do? I mean, I'm assuming that, in this day and age, TikTok, Instagram, everyone's a celebrity these days. Is there a specific trend you find that's kind of shaking things up?
So I think it's all about personal brand, and when want to be influencers or people who are on their way reach out to me and say I have this many followers, I always say to them, look, similar to an intern at a new company or the most famous person in the world, you want to be known as the best at something. So it's great if you're a lifestyle influencer. It's great if people follow you because you have amazing bikini pictures, and you might get some endorsement deals. But if you want the really good deals, the really big money, you need to be known as the number one person. Like, I can't do this if I don't get that person. I'll give you an example. There's a YouTuber named Mark Rober who creates. He builds like robots. He builds technology stuff, but really, really cool stuff with technology. And he does these videos on YouTube, and it's something that, like, when I grew up, I would say, "Oh, what a nerd! Like, who would watch that?" He gets 50 million views every week when he uploads a video. It's crazy how popular that is. But also, no one, it's so hard for other people to do it. So if you have a company that needs someone like that, you just don't have a lot of options. So he can now ask for whatever he wants when people reach out to him. So I think this industry is going into specialization. You don't necessarily have to have 300 million followers, but you want to be known as the person that is the best at something. If it's fashion, you have the best taste. If it's food, you are the best chef, or the healthiest meals. If it's fitness, you're the person that can be trusted about exercise. And if it's software security, then you're the person who knows how to protect computers, better than anyone else. Those are the people that will end up standing out, because we're in a world where now everybody's a lifestyle influencer, and
Yeah,
having what used to be interesting, having 100,000 followers, is not interesting anymore, because there's I think 20 million people with over 1 million followers or something like that in the world.
really.
It's diluted over time, and so the
Yeah.
result is that if you don't stand out, and that's my advice, happens to also be my advice to any brand I speak to. So it's like, it's great that you have the best product. How do you stand out? How do you make sure people, whenever they think of a problem, they immediately think about you? And there are brands like that exist, that, like, okay, if I have a problem, that's what I do. The solution is synonymous with their name. And how do you become that person? And if you're a young person working at a company, same thing. Like, you could be one of 50 interns, but if you're known as the guy who knows how to fix the printer when it's broken, you're more likely to be kept there after,
Hmm.
when they have to decide which interns are staying for full time.
And so, what could just the average guy or girl do in order to enhance their personal branding, start building themselves as the expert, as the go-to person, or, like, the one who's like, I don't know who this person is, but I gotta have a conversation because there's something they're saying that's striking a chord.
Yeah. So there, in my mind, there are three components. The first one is finding out what you're good at. The second, and like making sure you're really, really good at. Two is finding out what's needed in the environment that you're trying to stand out in, making sure that there's a match between those two things. And three is making sure people know about that, right? And it's not, I mean, the simplest way to say is to put it at the top of your resume, or to just talk about it all the time. But really, it's to wait for opportunities. Like, when the printer's broken, and they say, we're going to call the company, say, wait, hold on, give me a second, let me try to fix it, and let the word spread. But look for those opportunities. And people always say, like, when you look at really successful people, you say, oh, they're so lucky. Like, something came to them, there's this big opportunity. But the truth is that we all get lots of opportunities all the time, and we let most of them go. But if you're ready, you know what you're good at, you know what you're looking for, you know what other people are looking for. When that opportunity pops, you jump. That's the lucky people. That's the successful people. I'm sorry, the lucky was the part of this. That's the lucky
Well,
people. They're
yeah.
the successful people, because they failed a bunch of times and nobody remembers that, but they've succeeded the one time. And I went to Kellogg, which is a good business school, but I also got denied by 6 other schools. Nobody ever asked me which schools denied you. So you want to wait for you want to map out what are the things that will make you stand out, and wait for the opportunities to show them.
Yeah, everyone says they got lucky, but no one really talks about the failures, the night, the days, the mornings, the
Mhm.
pressure, the pain, the stress.
And the amount of times that lucky opportunities presented themselves, and instead of just sitting by and letting them go away, you hopped on them, failed, but didn't matter because you knew a new one was coming tomorrow. There's a famous joke by Jerry Seinfeld where he talks about how he's not supposed to eat junk food because it'll ruin your appetite. He's like, I'm old enough to know that there's a new appetite coming around the corner. So it doesn't matter. You fail at something, you messed up. That's great. Nobody's going to remember it unless you, I don't know, destroyed the company. But if you small failures, nobody remembers. But there's a new
Yeah,
opportunity around the corner.
I always say you're only limited by weakness of attention and poverty of imagination. So,
Great.
at the end of the day, yeah, at the end of the day, if we don't, and a huge part of I think really because we're in the world of sales and business. At the end of the day, if we don't take action, if no behaviors are being made, then nothing changes, nothing happens. And I agree 100%. You can either be a consumer or a creator. If you're a consumer, then you're just gonna, if you're gonna be a creator, on the other hand, and it doesn't necessarily mean social media. It could be,
Yeah.
as you just mentioned, just we're going out there and fixing the printer. By the way, just for the record, I hate printers, and they hate me. So I'm
It's
not
one
a
of those.
printer guy there.
No. It's the only reason why I hope everybody goes paperless, so printers get. But look, you're in sales. The amount of sales, I'm sure you've you've had plenty of times where a sale that you thought would go through didn't go through, or that something went wrong. Nobody remembers it because the second there's a good sale that goes through, everybody's celebrating that sale, and the world is wired that way. We want to celebrate success. So just believe in yourself, find what you're good at, and then make sure you pounce at these opportunities.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Gil, what do you like to do outside of business and work? What do you do for yourself, kind of to clear your mind, clear your head? Because this is a lot about us. And at the end of the day, we can only perform in a manner that is consistent with how we see ourselves conceptually. So, what does your life look like outside of business, outside of work, outside of helping organizations thrive?
I'm a really regular guy. I'm a dad. I have two kids. I love hanging out with the kids. Generally, like I think in a different life, I'd be a kindergarten teacher because I love kids and doing stuff with them. Play basketball. I love playing Civilization. I wouldn't say like I'm definitely not like at the level of the really really good players, but I'm a pretty good player at this point after 20 years of playing the series. Um, and it's very challenging and it gets you thinking. So, and you know what I love about that game? I don't know if you've ever played that game, but it's a game where you build like technology over the years. And then towards the end of the game, they run out of technology and they just call it future technology. And I love the fact that like we're kind of that's where we are right now in the real world. We're at future technology. So I'm really curious what the next 10, 20 years will be. I'm very excited about that.
Excellent. Gil, how can people find you, reach out to you if they want to have a conversation,
Yeah.
see if you
Um,
can help?
Yeah, reach out anytime on social media. I'm very easy to find at Gil Eyal on most social networks. And then my email address is gil, at stardustventures.us, just as it sounds.
Excellent. And is there anything you're listening to or any books you're reading recently, any podcasts, anything you feel that the
Yeah.
audience could get a kick out of?
Yeah, I love Scott Galloway and Pivot and pretty much anything he does. I know that's again, I said I'm a very regular guy. Listen to All In, even though politically I'm very far away from them. I think those guys are brilliant, and it's really interesting to hear their take on it. Um, and then just really any business or marketing podcast that comes across my way. I drive a lot, so I have a lot of time to kill.
Excellent. Excellent. Gil, thank you very much for joining us. This has been awesome. Congratulations on your success, and I wish you a lot of ongoing success in the future. Appreciate you joining us, and hope to have you back on the show again.
Thanks for having me. This was a blast.
And to listeners and viewers, thanks for joining. Tune in next time. And up until then, whatever you do, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Good selling.